Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is national Jewish memorials and national Jewish heroes and how they become heroes. Remember the bumper sticker, "We are all Miriam Lapid"? On December 6, 1993, Mordechai Lapid, age 56, and his son Shalom Lapid, age 19, were shot to death by terrorists near Hebron. Hamas claimed responsibility for the attack. The terrorists opened fire on the family car in the Givat Har Sina area, killing the father and son, leaving the mother, Miriam, with 13 children to raise alone. The bumper sticker and the button articulated so much feeling. Miriam Lapid was a symbol for all of Israel. All of Israel felt her pain. All of Israel felt her loss. A grieving widow caring for 13 orphan children was a gargantuan task. And now, 31 years later, the brutal murder of the 6 kidnapped hostages, Ori Danino, Carmel Gat, Almog Sarusi, Alexandra Labanov, Eden Yerushalmi, as well as the US citizen Hersh Goldberg-Polin. All of Israel is a grieving mother. Israel as a grieving mother is described, of course, in the book of Lamentations, in Eicha. Every so often, a cause elevates itself. It takes on a life which is greater and bigger than one would ever have expected. This happens because of a fusion of issues, which include the media, character, timing, charm, and poignance of the story, as well as the charisma of those telling the story. When this unique combination of factors unites, the story takes on a life of its own. The Hersh Goldberg-Polin story that never should have or would have unfolded had it not been for the heinous attacks by Hamas on October 7th is one of those examples. His story has touched so many of us, so deeply. His mother and father have touched us. The posters of him and his image, the pictures, all touched us. Israel's President Isaac Herzog gave voice to this idea in his eulogy for Hersh. Many who attended the funeral wore red t-shirts which read "Sorry." President Herzog explained the sentiment when he asked forgiveness from Hersh and the 5 other executed hostages. Herzog said, "I ask for forgiveness from you, Carmel, Uri, Eden, Almog, and Alex. I ask forgiveness on behalf of the State of Israel. We failed to protect you in the horrific events of October 7th. We failed to bring you home safely. Hersh, your unique light touched all of us from the first moment. Even through the posters pleading for your return, most of us never had the privilege of knowing you in life. But for the past 11 months, you have lived within us. Michal and I met with your parents and family many times over the past year, and we're honored to know people of exceptional character and to learn an unforgettable lesson from them about the boundless love of a mother and a father." Hersh became and will remain a symbol of the hostages that in no way diminishes the other hostages and their stories and their suffering. It is simply human nature to latch onto a symbol which represents the whole. It is how great stories are built, using metaphors and metonymy, as well as synecdoche. Metonymy comes from the Greek word which means change of name, while synecdoche means in place of. That is what we do when we build great stories. In much the same way, the story of Anne Frank, which served that role. People came closer to an understanding of what it was like to be a young girl during the Holocaust in Amsterdam because they read her diary. No one can possibly understand what Hersh and his family went through, but because of the way in which his story was told and the passion with which they told their story, so many were able to come to at least a minuscule understanding of the horror and suffering they confronted. Hamas celebrates death, Israel celebrates life. Even with these tragic murders, we see the great life that these victims represented. Hamas erased their lives, but they cannot erase the memories of each and every one of the victims. Ultimately, that is the message of hope. That is the message of Israel. That is the message of the Goldberg-Polin and Miriam Lapid stories. That is what they represent for all of us. May the memories of all those slaughtered at the hands of Hamas be a blessing. Coming up next, Points of View. First up is a column from the Wall Street Journal. It's authored by William Galston, and it is entitled, Can College Campuses Get a Grip on Antisemitism? Subtitled, If They Don't, Expect a Collapse of Authority Like What I Saw as a Student in the 1960s. It was published, as I said, in the Wall Street Journal on September 3rd, 2024. This is how Galston begins. As college students began returning to campus, news broke of Hamas's cold-blooded murder of 6 hostages in a tunnel under Rafah. This crime should remind everyone how the Gaza war began, and in the better world, it would deter student radicals from chanting pro-Hamas slogans. The real issue, however, is whether campus administrators have learned anything from their disastrous mishandling of campus protests last academic year, and whether they are prepared to respond differently now. High-level task forces are at work in many of the most visible sites of disruption, and 2 of these groups, representing Columbia and Stanford, have issued detailed reports of their findings and recommendations. Galston now explains what is obvious to everyone but the universities, that Jewish students don't feel safe. That's what the report says. Galston continues. What they uncovered is deeply disturbing. Large number of Jewish students report harassment, intimidation, and even physical assault. Students wearing yarmulkes have been spat on, humiliated, and shoved up against walls. Necklaces with Jewish symbols have been ripped off their necks. Jewish students have been chased off campus by groups threatening violence, and many avoid walking alone on campus. Some have been excluded from public spaces. An Israeli student at Columbia reported that when she went to university's health services, no one came to see her, and she overheard the conversation between 2 healthcare professionals in the next room, during which one refused to treat her because of her national origin. The Columbia Task Force found that some critiques of Zionism on campus in recent months have incorporated traditional anti-Semitic tropes about secretive power, money, global conspiracies, bloodthirstiness, and comparisons of Zionists to Nazis or rodents. Stanford Task Force concluded that anti-Semitism exists today on Stanford campus in ways that are widespread and pernicious. Well, that's insightful, but we knew all that already. Now Galston concludes that policies of protection are essential. Senior administrators must step in to solve anti-Semitic incidents. He writes, rules mean nothing unless they're enforced. All incoming students should receive not only written notice of campus regulations, but also mandatory in-person briefings to explain the rules and answer questions about them, including consequences of violating them. For serious violations, there should be a system of escalating punishments, a warning after the first offense, suspension for at least 1 semester after a second, and expulsion without the possibility of readmission for the 3rd. In cases involving major disruptions, top officials, not middle-level administrators, should take the lead. The response to interference with core functions should be enforcement, not negotiation. If presidents and provosts aren't serious about institutional rules and norms, no one else will be. And the outcome will be repetition of the collapse of authority that I saw as a student in the 1960s. This Galston column is exceptional and so true, but unless administrators and leaders take charge, nothing will change. It'll just get worse. The next column is by Tantku Varmandaranjan. It was published on September 5th, 2024 in the Wall Street Journal also. It's entitled, The Jews Stand Unbowed But Alone, subtitled Bernard Henri Lévy on How Hamas's October 7th attack changed Israel and the world. Lévy is one of the most insightful thinkers in the world today, not just Jewish thinkers, thinkers in general. This is how he begins. The muted reaction to the murder of 6 Israeli hostages by Hamas last week fills Bernard Henri Lévy with despair. It tragically confirms his view that the Jewish state and Jews around the world are alone. That searing sense of abandonment and isolation gave Mr. Lévy the title of his new book, Israel Alone, scheduled to be published in English translation next week. In an interview in his home, Mr. Levy, a liberal Jewish French philosopher and filmmaker, draws attention to one of the hostages, Hersh Goldberg-Polin, 23. Hersh was executed for being a Jew, Mr. Levy says. He was also American. Where is the collective rage in the United States? The collective grief. This indifference pains me. Mr. Levy has met Hersh's parents, the most resilient, compassionate, freedom-loving Americans. Why, he asked, has the whole country not rallied to wrap Goldberg-Polin in their arms and carry them forward in their painful journey of mourning? The solitude is familiar, Mr. Levy says. Jews have always been alone, though there was a golden moment when they had some smiles, particularly during the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. Now, however, they are back to the stage before, to loneliness. It is fashionable to be anti-Jew in America. Jews have been assimilated into the box of oppressors. Now the column concludes, and this is enormously insightful and worth paying attention to. Yet, for all his despair, Mr. Levy isn't despairing. He wrote his book to instill courage and pride in the Jews and to galvanize their many non-Jewish supporters in America. He concludes that the soul, mind, and genius of Judaism are standing firm amid tumult and torment. They won't succumb to Amalek, the oldest enemy of the Jewish people, incarnated afresh in Hamas. That evil which Mr. Levy witnessed when he traveled to the kibbutzim near Gaza in October will remain with him forever. I will never forget my first impressions, the smell of sour milk that filled the bullet-pocked, blasted, half-burned houses. Still, he's confident Jews will emerge stronger. I see light because the Jews don't accept darkness anymore, he says. They don't disarm themselves. They fight back. They behave as they should. They are proud. Most important, they don't hide who they are anymore. This is truly an insightful piece. Tanku Vradajan brought us insight into a remarkable thinker, Bernard-Henri Lévy. Thank you. Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 7 cartoons, memes, and headlines today. Yes, headlines again. I love these headlines. This first cartoon is Gaza. You can see the blood. What looks like a fortress is actually an Israeli tank. The meaning is that Israel's tanks are imprisoning Gaza. Next up is a Houthi missile which pierced Israel's air defense, which was a kippah. You see it there. This third cartoon is anti-Zionist poster sale. One says to the other, buy 2 anti-Zionism posters and get a third for free. Next are 2 headlines. Headline number 1 reads, Hurricane Debbie blows $1 million worth of cocaine onto a Florida beach. That's funny. This next headline reads, New Jersey accent amongst the most difficult to understand, according to new survey. This next meme is a classic. Bike riders simply do not pay attention to traffic lights, and in this meme, the creator makes fun of them. The meme reads, cyclist repeatedly fails CAPTCHA test after failing to identify the images of traffic signals. Next is a great meme for those who love beer. It reads, I don't drink beer, I drink wheat smoothie. That's funny. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Yemeni Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sari referred to the rocket alert sirens in central Israel, saying that we carried out a high-quality military operation aimed at a military target in the Jaffa area. According to him, the operation was carried out with a new hypersonic ballistic missile, more on that later on, that managed to reach its destination. The enemy's defense was unable to intercept it, Sari added, that the missile traveled a distance of 2,040 kilometers in 11 and a half minutes. It caused fear among the Zionists. More than 2 million Zionists fled to shelters. For the first time in history, this operation comes as part of a 5th phase of the escalation against Israel. The missile force made a tremendous effort in developing missile technology so that it meets the requirements and the challenges of fighting against Israel, and succeeds in achieving the goals by bypassing the obstacles, the American, Israeli, and other interception systems. In conclusion, he said that, and I'm quoting again, the geographical obstacle of American-British attacks and the monitoring and spying systems will not prevent Yemen from fulfilling its religious, moral, and humanitarian duty for the Palestinian people. The enemy should expect more attacks and high-quality operations at the beginning of the first anniversary of October 7th, including a response to the attack in Houthi. Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said the missile attack on Israel was a further stage in the escalation of the conflict between the Iran-backed group and Israel. In his speech, hours after the Houthis fired the ballistic missile targeting Israel, he said Houthi attacks would continue as long as the war in Gaza is ongoing. The IDF, for their part, said that the Houthi rebels in Yemen do not possess hypersonic missile technology, despite their claims that one was launched against Israel. Yemen's Houthis published an almost 2-minute video of what they said was footage of the hypersonic missile named Palestine 2 being launched in a Sunday attack on Israel. The Iran-aligned Houthis, who control northern Yemen, reached central Israel with a missile on Sunday for the first time. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would inflict a heavy price on them in return. Tehran, for their part, has said they have not sent hypersonic missiles to Yemen's Houthis. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian said in the televised news conference on Monday, a day after the terror group used one to strike Israel, according to the Houthis. Senior Hamas official Bassam Naim told Qatari newspaper Al Arabi Al Jadid that the Houthis' operation to bomb Tel Aviv is a natural result of the Israeli entity's invasion of the entire region. Islamic Jihad also congratulated the Houthis. We praised the rockets launched by the Yemeni heroes in the heart of Tel Aviv, which exacerbated the enemy's crisis and demonstrated its weakness. The courage shown by Yemeni people in the face of American arrogance and Zionist tyranny is confirmation of their commitment to support the Palestinian people. Wow, this is really heavy stuff. They really believe that they struck a death blow to Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will attend the United Nations General Assembly later this month in September in New York, his office reported. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian will attend the upcoming BRICS summit in Russia. State media cited Tehran's ambassador to Moscow as saying that amid tensions in the West over military cooperation between the two countries, the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Tuesday that Russia had received the ballistic missiles from Iran and was likely to use them in Ukraine within weeks. Cooperation between Moscow and Tehran threatened wider European security, he said. Iran's ambassador to Russia, Kazem Al-Jalali, confirmed that Pezeshkian will attend the summit of the BRICS, which is major emerging economies, scheduled to be held in Kazan, Russia, on October 22nd to October 24th. According to Iran state media, Pezeshkian will meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, Jalali said. Iran and Russia are set to sign a bilateral comprehensive cooperation agreement, and that is not good news. Emirati Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed wrote on Saturday on X that the United Arab Emirates will not support any post-war plans for Gaza without the establishment of a Palestinian state first. Now to Egypt. The Egyptian cabinet said in a statement that the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has directed the Saudi Republic Investment Fund, the PIF, to pump $5 billion worth of investment money into Egypt in what is called the first stage. The statement came after Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli met the Saudi Crown Prince in Riyadh to discuss boosting bilateral relations. The statement contained no further details when the funds are going to be invested, the nature of the investments, or in how many stages the Saudi government is planning to make its investments. The PIF, the fund, didn't immediately respond to Reuters' request for a comment. In 2022, the Saudi-Egyptian investment company SEEK was established as a wholly owned PIF subsidiary. Saudi Arabia had long-term deposits with the Central Bank of Egypt worth $5.3 billion. That was as of December 2023. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. On February 27th, Ari Spitz was wounded in Gaza. I've asked you to keep him in mind and in your prayers. He lost 2 legs and an arm, and today he is fitted with prosthetics. He is not only walking, but driving a car. His smile lights up a room. He puts on tefillin. He was in a coma and intubated for 41 days. His parents and family never lost faith, and neither did the countless thousands who prayed for him. When he was told of his injuries, Ari's reaction was, "Zeu? That's all?" Imagine that. In this clip, you can see how remarkable this 22-year-old really is.
כשהרופא אומר לך, הלכו לך 2 רגליים ויד אחת, מה אתה אומר לו?
וזהו?
תסביר.
אני אומר, אם הראש בסדר, הכל יהיה בסדר. כל חייל שנכנס בא ואומר, אני מוכן להקריב את החיים שלי.
מה אתה חושב על אבא ואמא?
גם חבר'ה שנפצעו. אתה לא חושב על כלום, אתה חושב על 7 באוקטובר, אתה חושב על השואה, אתה חושב...
ומוכן למות.
בן כמה אתה?
אני בן 22.
שאלה אם אתה מבין שזה יכול להיות הפתק האחרון שכתבת.
כן.
כשאתה כותב את הפתק, האפשרות למות עוברת מול העיניים. האפשרות ש2 רגליים יקטעו ויד תקטע יותר קשה?
היא לא עוברת. היא לא עוברת. ודווקא, כאילו, אני חושב שעם ישראל צריך להבין שיש אנשים שאיבדו גפיים שעוד, ברוך השם, יש להם עתיד. והכל בסדר לראות פרוטזות. אתה יכול להסתכל, לא יודע, בבית כנסת או סתם ברחוב, ותמיד המבוגרים כאילו מנסים לא להסתכל, או מנסים, דווקא הילדים הקטנים, 3, 4, 5, אז כאילו, מה קרה לך לרגליים? נשבר לך הרגל?
אז איפה ישנתם? את החיוכים של בני משפחת שפיץ היה קשה לפספס. זה לא משהו שמאוד נפוץ כאן במחלקה לטיפול נמרץ.
אנחנו היום מודים על הניסים, וביום שני הוא תורר, הוא כבר מתקשר, הוא כבר לא מונשם ולא מורדם. שתה כוס קפה פעם ראשונה הבוקר, ממש ניסים.
הסיבה, ארי, הבן והאח, לוחם גבעתי שנפצע אנושות בפיצוץ מטען בעזה, שב להכרה באורח נס ואפילו התחיל לדבר.
בפעם הראשונה שהוא הצליח לדבר, אז הדבר ראשון שהוא אמר לנו זה I love you. מיד נשברנו, התחלנו ממש לבכות, גם האחות שמה בחדר.
גם הבנו שבאמת הראש עובד, כי לנו הוא אמר that I love you, לאחיות הוא אמר תודה. ולראש ישיבה שלו שהגיע במקרה באותו יום, הרב מנוביץ' מישיבת הגולן, שבאמת תומך בנו מההתחלה, הוא אמר, אני רוצה לחזור לישיבה.
עם כניסת הלוחמים לתוך מבנה ממולכד, הופעל על הכוח מטען רב עוצמה.
זה היה אירוע קשה. כוח של גבעתי עסק בתיאור בית בשכונת זייתון שבצפון הרצועה לפני כחודש וחצי, ואז מטען רב עוצמה התפוצץ על הלוחמים, והם כולם נפגעו. מפקד הפלוגה רב סרן יפתח שחר ומפקד המחלקה סרן איתי סייף נהרגו. 10 לוחמים נוספים נפגעו. ארי נפצע אנושות.
קצין העיר התקשר, שאל אם אנחנו, איפה אנחנו. הגענו לפה 40 דקות הכי ארוכות בחיים שלנו. היה לו באמת מזל מאוד מאוד גדול, וחברים גיבורים, ששמו לו חוסמי עורקים בשטח. הרופא הגדודי חשב שהוא כבר מת, ובדק לו דופק רק ליתר ביטחון, והרגיש דופק מאוד חלש. הגיע משום מקום נמר של גדוד אחר, של גדוד שקד. נתנו לו דם בשטח.
בלי זה ובלי עוד הרבה דברים שקרו במהלך הפינוי שלו, הוא לא היה איתנו היום.
הוא הגיע לבית חולים סורוקה עם 669 מוסק, תוך 42 דקות מהפציעה. הוא גם נאבק להישאר בחיים. הרופא מה-669 סיפר לנו שהוא בעצם הבין את חומרת הפציעה. הוא הבין שהוא אם לא נשאר בהכרה, הוא לא יישאר בחיים.
במשך 6 שבועות הם כאן, מחוץ למחלקה לטיפול נמרץ בבית החולים סורוקה.
התפללתי לאח שלי ועשיתי מעשים טובים עם כל הכיתה.
לא איבדו לרגע תקווה, התפללו, והנס קרה. מה הוא אמר לך? מה שאלת אותו?
הוא בעיקר מדבר שטויות עכשיו. הוא כאילו, הוא אמר שהוא בסדר, הוא מרגיש טוב. כאילו משהו באופן יחסי.
עכשיו החלום הגדול, לפחות הראשון, הוא לחגוג עם הבן שנפצע את ליל הסדר עם כל המשפחה. זה גם יהיה יום ההולדת ה-22 של ארי, שנולד מחדש.
מכובד ארי שפיץ, חברו והצמד של איתי.
שמח תשמח אחים אהובים, כשמחך יציך בגן עדן מקדם, ברוך אתה אדוני משמח חתן וכלה.
Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.